In part one, a college student, Maggie is attending a history class. She gives long-winded run-on answers to questions posed by the instructor, Professor Ernst Reinhardt. Believing that Maggie, who is Slovakian, is trying to take control of the class and show him up and destroy his reputation because he is an ethnic German, Professor Reinhardt acts. He arranges a meeting with Maggie at a local restaurant. At the restaurant, Reinhardt offers Maggie a deal. If she remains silent for the remainder of the class, he will give her a grade of A and permit her to use him as a professional reference. Maggie is offended and refuses the offer. She pours a glass of water on Reinhardt's head and leaves the restaurant. At the end of the semester, Maggie submits a term paper. Reinhardt gives Maggie a grade of F for the term paper and a failing grade for the class. Maggie is distraught. She believes that her term paper was well written and that the F is retaliation for refusing to agree to remain silent. She retains an attorney, Abner Gableman, and files a grievance against Professor Reinhardt. The school convenes a 3-member panel to hear the case, and witnesses are called to testify. Witnesses who have testified thus far are students Cindy Goodday and Ernley O'Shea, who also attended the class. Professor Lester McNelly, a member of the faculty with whom Professor Reinhardt had confided. Sunny Dubois, the waitress who served Maggie and Reinhardt at the restaurant. And Stepan Buzak, a personal friend of Maggie's with whom she confided. We now rejoin the hearing in progress. The next witness is about to be called.
I call Professor Roger J. Rapolsky.
A portly, middle-aged man enters and goes to the witness box.
Please raise your right hand.
Rapolsky raises his right hand.
Do you solemnly promise or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated.
What is your name?
Professor Roger J. Rapolsky.
What are your professional credentials?
I am a professor of advanced educational metrics at Babcock University Center, Confederation of the Central Pacific States.
What is advanced educational metrics?
It is a field of education that specializes in the practical application of psychological theory in the area of academic grading.
How long have you been a professor?
27 years.
And during that time, how long have you been involved in the study of advanced educational metrics?
12 years.
Do your studies include the grading of term papers?
Yes, they do.
Do you require your students to write term papers?
I do.
So, you have both theoretical and practical knowledge in the field of educational grading.
That would be accurate.
And the grading of term papers is something with which you have familiarity.
Yes, sometimes too familiar. I've graded at least 10,000 term papers.
What grading system do you use to grade term papers?
A letter grade system based on a method developed by me, known as the Rapolsky grading scale.
Could you briefly describe your grading method?
The grades range from A to F, with A being the highest grade and F being the lowest. What differentiates my system from the more conventional grading systems is that my system eliminates the element of bias in assessing the quality systems of paper. It does this by comparing a paper to a master template of standards embedded in a computerized system. Human error is eliminated. The system is foolproof. It also allows an instructor to process many more papers.
Who develops the master template?
A panel of distinguished professors from the Academy for the Advancement of Academic Arts, or AAAA.
What is the AAAA?
The Academy for the Advancement of Academic Arts is a compendium of 47 major international professional academic organizations that represent over 800,000 college professors around the world. Among its many functions, the AAAA issues certificates to institutions of higher education which certify that their grading systems are in accordance with AAAA academic standards.
I move that this witness's entire testimony be stricken.
On what grounds?
That it's all a bunch of baloney!
It's not baloney, Madam Chairman. Dr. Rapolsky is an expert witness, and his testimony should be heard in full.
Objection overruled. However, I urge you to try to get to the point as quickly as possible.
Thank you, I will. Now, sir, did you have an opportunity to analyze this term paper?
Abner shows Rapolsky Maggie's term paper.
Yes,
What grade did you give this paper?
an A minus,
Based on what?
based on the Rapolsky grading scale.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that this paper that was graded an F should have gotten an A minus?
Yes,
Isn't that a rather wide discrepancy?
yes it is.
So maybe your grading scale could be flawed.
Absolutely not.
Frankly, I've never heard of this grading system. How do we know that it's legitimate?
Sir, my findings have been published in over 337 books in journals around the world and have been confirmed by no less than 227 academic organizations, including 23 in the People's Republic of Uzbekistan and 14 in the South Arctic Confederation.
Why are you becoming so defensive?
Because I resent the implication of the hearing officer's questions,
What implication?
that somehow my system is worthless.
Isn't that possible?
Absolutely not. It's been tested and retested so many times that I have lost count.
Who develops your master template for this program?
The AAAA.
And where is their main office?
Bratislava in the Slovak Republic.
Are you Slovakian?
I object. Irrelevant.
Objection overruled.
So, again, are you Slovakian?
No, I'm an American, and I resent the implication of your question. I am not biased in favor of the plaintiff.
Nobody asked if you're biased.
May I continue with my examination, please?
You may continue.
So, my client's term paper should have received an A-.
Yes,
How long did it take you to analyze my client's term paper?
it took the computer about 30 seconds.
Did the analysis include any comments?
It did.
Can you share those comments with the court?
Yes, I can.
Rapolsky removes a sheet of paper from his jacket pocket.
What does that sheet of paper contain?
My comments.
Objection! Inadmissible. This information was never shared with my client.
I'll be glad to share this information with the respondent now.
Isn't it a little too late for that?
Objection overruled. However, I hereby direct that the plaintiff provide this panel and a respondent with a copy of the document in question, and that the failure of the plaintiff to share evidence in a timely manner be duly noted on the record.
I did not know about this document until just before the start of this hearing.
That's no excuse. Withholding evidence is a serious offense.
I know that, Madam Chairman, but it was not intentional.
That's irrelevant. I order a 5-minute recess to give Mr. Gableman time to comply with my order. A copy machine is located down the hall. The witness may also take a break.
Kleiderman, Epler, Korkman, and Rapolsky exit.
Just a cost to make a copy.
I think it's a quarter a copy.
Quarter? That's quite expensive. Could you loan me 2 quarters? It seems to be out of change.
Why don't you ask your client?
Reinhardt reaches into his coat pocket and takes out 2 quarters.
Here, Mr. Newman, I have 2 quarters. Consider it a gift.
Abner takes the 2 quarters.
Thank you.
My pleasure. You see, I'm not such a bad guy. However, my dear, I just want to let you know that I forgive you for that little escapade you pulled, or should I say, I poured on me at the restaurant. You know, of course, that you have no chance of winning. Your witness, Rapolsky, is a buffoon, a charlatan. He's been laughed out of so many courtrooms already that his presence can only amuse. No one can possibly take him seriously. The fact is, your paper was atrocious. No amount of analysis can change that fact. But to show you how good of a guy I really am, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you agree to drop this case, I'll give you a D- on the paper and a D- for the course. I think that's fair.
What the professor is offering is fair.
I need to discuss that with my lawyer.
We're making the offer now. If you decide to accept, then you inform your lawyer when we return.
Let me tell you something, Professor Reinhardt.
Abner returns. He's holding papers in his hand.
What's going on?
Professor Reinhardt made me an offer to settle this case.
You communicated with my client outside of my presence.
It was just idle conversation.
From what my client told me, it seems that what was discussed was more than just idle conversation.
Get off your high horse, counselor. You know, and we all know, that you can't win this case. But it pains me to see your client trying to climb a mountain that can't be climbed. So to ease her pain, to put an end to this fiasco, I'm willing to change the grade of her paper to D- and give her a D- for the course.
What kind of deal is that?
It's a good deal.
Says you. And don't tamper with my client again, you hear? We had 2 weeks to negotiate something, and you never said a word. But the moment I turned my back, wham!
Nobody was tampering with anybody. We were just talking.
Call what you want. I'm reporting this to the panel.
Stop being foolish.
Kleiderman, Epler, Korkman, and Rapolsky return to take their respective places.
I call this hearing back to order. All parties are present and the witness is present. Mr. Gableman, did you provide copies of the witness's report to the respondent?
Not yet, Madam Chairman. During recess, a serious matter developed.
What serious matter?
During recess, the respondent and his counsel communicated with my client while I was out of the hearing.
What about?
According to what I was told, they offered to change the grade on my client's term paper and give her a passing grade for the course if she agrees to drop the case.
Is that true?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Why wasn't this offer communicated to the plaintiff in the presence of her attorney?
Perhaps I could explain. It was just meaningless banter. That's all, between me and the plaintiff. Completely spontaneous.
Madam Chairman, I am outraged and move for summary judgment in favor of the plaintiff.
I oppose that motion. If anything, the plaintiff's complaint should be thrown out.
Order! First, I will tolerate no further shenanigans from either one of you. Second, both motions are denied. And third, while the hearing is in session, I am ordering all parties to communicate through me. Is that clear? Now, let's proceed with this hearing. Where were we?
You ordered the plaintiff to provide copies of the witness's report to the respondent? Thank you. You're welcome.
Well, were the copies made and distributed as ordered?
I will comply now, Madam Chairman.
Abner gives a copy of the report to Xander and another copy to Kleiderman.
May I proceed with my directive?
Proceed.
Thank you. Please read the comments contained in your report.
This term paper reads a grade of A-. This is based on the following criteria: style of writing, clarity of argument, use of footnotes, content of bibliography, general organization, grammatical integrity, and overall scholarship. The style of writing is flowing and engaging. The arguments are set forth clearly and coherently. Footnotes are used appropriately for quotations and other factual material. The bibliography is extensive. The paper is well organized, that is, has a readily identifiable beginning, middle, and end. Grammar is generally good, containing just a few minor errors and some awkward sentence structure. As a work of scholarship, this paper is of immense value. It makes an important contribution to the general body of knowledge, and after minor editing to correct grammatical errors, this paper would be suitable for publication.
When did you evaluate the plaintiff's paper?
2 weeks ago.
Were you surprised by the grade the paper received from the respondent?
Very much so. In fact, I was shocked. An F for this paper is completely unjustifiable.
Thank you. Your witness.
Now, Mr. Rapolsky.
That's Professor Rapolsky. Thank you.
Excuse me, Professor Rapolsky. Did you actually read the paper yourself?
No, I did not.
Who read it?
My computer.
So, you did not read the paper? Okay. Now, isn't it a fact that your Rapolsky grading system was determined to be a fraud?
Absolutely not.
Remember, sir, you are testifying under oath. Once again, I ask, wasn't your grading system found to be a fraud?
No.
Didn't the Federal Trade Commission receive at least 27 complaints about your program?
Yes, but they were all politically motivated. They come from teachers' organizations who want to discredit me because they fear for their jobs.
But is it a fact that complaints were filed? True.
Yes, complaints were filed, but so what? People make complaints all the time. That doesn't mean they're true.
But it doesn't mean they're false either, correct?
The Federal Trade Commission can rule whichever way it wants. I fully stand behind my system. It is foolproof and eliminates human error and is used in many countries throughout the world.
Isn't it a fact that 5 years ago you were deported from the Royal Saharan Republic for bribing school officials to adopt your system?
Absolutely untrue.
And isn't it true that 3 years ago the government of Amazonia revoked your visa after you were charged with racketeering?
Outrageous. I'm an educator, not a hoodlum or a shakedown artist.
Isn't it true that you served a 3-year stretch in federal prison for money laundering?
That was years ago, before I turned my life around. Why are you trying to tear me down?
I move that this entire cross-examination be stricken.
Motion denied. You may proceed.
Thank you. Sir, isn't it true that the AAAA is nothing but a sham organization concocted by you?
No, the AAAA is real. It exists.
Isn't it true that 2 years ago the French news agency Française Victoire published a 4-part expose on the AAAA, which revealed that the AAAA is nothing but a cover for an international criminal syndicate?
That report was groundless, all based on innuendos and slurs intended to discredit my work.
Indeed, sir. Is your name really Rapolsky?
My name is Rapolsky. Why are you trying to say that I'm not who I say I am?
Isn't it true that while serving in federal prison, you were known as a Slovan Petlikov?
Yes. So?
So who are you? Robert Rapolsky or Slovan Petlikov?
Now I'm Rapolsky.
And isn't it true that you were born in Prasov in Slovakia?
Yes, it is true. But I moved to the United States many years ago. I live here now. What does this have to do with anything?
Are you related to the plaintiff?
No, I am not.
Both you and she are from Slovakia. Are you not related?
No, Just because we're both Slovakian does not mean we are related.
I know that, however, you both come from the same country. True?
Yes, true. How much more of this night questioning must I endure?
Are you almost finished?
Almost, Madam Chairman. Just a few more questions for the witness. How much did the plaintiff pay you to testify?
Must I answer that question?
I'm directing you to answer that question.
$1,000 plus expenses.
So, you're being paid to testify.
Of course. What do you expect? For me to work for free? I have expenses too. Do you do your job for nothing?
Thank you. No further questions.
I wish to redirect.
Granted, but keep it short.
Thank you. What is your relationship to the plaintiff?
None.
Have you testified truthfully thus far?
Of course I have.
Has anyone coached you in advance regarding your testimony?
No.
When you were serving time in prison, was that for any offenses that had anything to do with the matters currently being discussed here?
No.
Why did you change your name?
Because I no longer wanted to be known by my original Slovakian name, so I changed my name to Roger J. Rapolsky.
Why Roger J. Rapolsky?
It sounded less foreign than slow on pen and copy.
Have you ever been found guilty in the United States of any violations of the law relating to the adaptation of your grades?
No.
Has any federal U.S. regulatory agency issued any cease and desist orders against your grading system?
No.
Why did you create your grading system?
To allow teachers to spend more time educating and less time grading papers.
Have you received any honors for creating your grading system?
Yes, many.
Could you name a few?
With pleasure. I received the Golden Pen with Gold Leaf Clusters from the Central Mediterranean Republic. I was made an honorary member of the Council for Educational Excellence by the Chancellor of Higher Education for the People's Republic of North Wallachistan. And I was awarded the coveted silver eraser with gold chalk marks by the President of East Slovenia, a beautiful country inhabited by women whose charms are unsurpassed.
Thank you. No more.
May I cross-examine?
Yes, but please keep it short.
Thank you. How much did you pay to receive those honors?
Objection!
Question withdrawn. And finish with this witness.
May I answer? I did resent that question.
The witness is excused. You may leave.
But Your Excellency, I want to answer the question.
You are excused. Please leave, or I will have to call security to have you escorted out.
All right.
Are you ready to call your next witness?
I am, Madam Chairman. I call Dr. Conrad Bagel.
A distinguished-looking man enters and goes into the witness stand. Please raise your right hand. Bagelborn raises his left hand.
No, I said your right hand. Do you solemnly promise or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may lower your hand and be seated.
Your name?
Dr. Conrad Babelhorn.
What is your profession?
I'm the director of the Institute for the Study of Communication Disorders at Central Amazon University
How long have you served in that capacity?
for the past 7 years.
Before that, where were you employed?
I was an associate professor of speech pathology at Burlington Women's College, West Wind Islands in the South Atlantic Ocean.
Have you published any articles?
I have
How many?
327.
On what topics?
Speech and language problems developed during periods of acute intoxication, the relationship between speech impediments and drug use, the physiology of slurred speech during periods of chronic inebriation, the diagnosis of and treatment for drug-induced aphasia, the relationship between family history and the onset of expressive disorders induced by chemical agents, comparative analysis of speech patterns between men and women during periods of acute and chronic intoxication, during addiction and distortions of speech, psychosocial factors, and many other subjects.
Have you received any special honors?
I have dozens.
Can you name a few?
I can.
Can't you speed this up?
Madam Chairman, I'm trying to establish my witness's credentials.
Okay, but don't take all day doing it.
Please tell the panel a few of your honors.
I received the Brass Microphone Award from the Brotherhood of Radio Announcers, the Silver Ear Medallion from the Eastern Conference for the Selective Listening Impaired, the E. Pettigrew Pittsdale Prize from the National Association for the Attainment of Better Diction, and the coveted I Can Hear You Fine Award from the International Conference for Speech and Language Development, located at South Pacific University and chaired by the legendary Dr. E. Foggington Jones.
What are your educational credentials?
I have a BA in history from Atlantic Coast College, North Pacific Republic, an MA in liberal philosophy from the Center for Capitalist Studies, Southern Federation of Socialist States, and an MD award from the University of Antarctica, located just a few miles south of the North Pole. I also served as Chief of Medical Services with the U.S. Liberty Corps, a well-known paramilitary mercenary organization, where I treated thousands of patients, including several high-ranking politicians suffering from a wide range of acute and chronic speech impairments secondary to the ingestion of chemical-based toxins.
Did you ever examine my client?
Yes,
When?
3 weeks ago.
So you're familiar with her case?
Yes.
What were your findings?
After a thorough examination, which took over 4 hours and involved the administration of several specially developed diagnostic procedures and tests, I concluded that the patient was suffering from a condition known as longitudinal expressive dysphonia, or LED, a very rare disorder.
LED. What are its symptoms?
It's a neurological disorder which causes the patient to compensate for difficulty in speaking by lapsing into long, rambling patterns of speech to avoid becoming silent. The patient can have normal speech for long periods of time and then suddenly, without warning, lose expressive control.
What causes it?
That is still unknown. However, my team of scientists at Central Arctic University are working feverishly to unravel that mystery.
Can this disorder be treated?
There is no known treatment. Cognitive behavioral therapy has been known to be effective in helping the patient to better control the onset of panic associated with the fear of becoming silent, but that treatment is at best palliative in nature.
Is LED associated with alcohol or drug abuse?
There are studies that suggest that the ingestion of toxic substances could trigger or exacerbate the symptoms, but the findings are far from conclusive.
Have you treated any cases of longitudinal expressive dysphonia?
Yes, one.
Where?
In a small village near the Arctic Circle.
And what was the outcome?
The patient continues to demonstrate a tendency to lose expressive control, but the frequency of relapse has been reduced substantially to the great relief of all who are within listening range of her.
Could this condition explain why my client's speech is at times long and random?
Absolutely.
So, my client is suffering from a neurological condition that requires medical treatment?
Yes.
Your words.
You're a medical doctor?
Yes.
And you specialize in speech and language communication disorders.
Yes.
And you practice medicine in the U.S. Liberty Corps?
Yes.
Now, isn't it true that the U.S. Liberty Corps fired you?
Absolutely not. I resigned.
Isn't it true that the U.S. Liberty Corps sued you for embezzlement, fraud, and sexual misconduct involving one of their guard dogs named Lady?
Those matters were blown way out of proportion and had no bearing whatsoever on my competence as a medical doctor.
I have a report from the Commandant of the U.S. Liberty Corps which states, and I quote, "This is to certify that Dr. Bigglehorn served in the U.S. Liberty Corps for 5 years. During his period of service, his performance was consistently shoddy. Despite intensive attempts to help him improve, Dr. Bigglehorn's performance continued to be substandard, leaving us no choice but to terminate his service with the Corps." Signed, Edwin J. Bronson, Colonel General and Supreme Commandant, U.S. Liberty Corps, closed quote.
That letter proves something.
Isn't that why you went to the Central Arctic?
I went to the Central Arctic because I was offered a wonderful opportunity to be of service and pursue my research.
Now, you testified that the plaintiff has a condition you call longitudinal expressive dysphonia, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true that there's no medical journal or recognized medical authority anywhere in the world that recognizes longitudinal expressive dysphonia as a legitimate medical or psychiatric diagnosis?
Untrue. It is recognized by my colleagues at Central Arctic U.
Isn't it true that they hired you at Central Arctic University after you agreed to serve as their chief of janitorial services?
That is only partially true.
And tell us the entire story.
They were glad to accept me as a member of the faculty if I, in return, would agree to help them with their efforts to disinfect their campus in order to prevent further outbreaks of sarcoidomatosis, or PST, an especially dreadful disease with an extremely high morbidity rate that had been plaguing the campus for years. To help eradicate that horrible disease required that I perform janitorial services on a daily basis, service that I gladly provided. I might add that through my intercession as chief janitor, the school won the prestigious Golden Mop and Pail Award and was the subject of a feature article in a recent edition of Weiss magazine.
You perform these janitorial services as the chief of housekeeping services, correct?
Yes, but I was doing serious medical research too.
So you were mopping the floor and doing medical research at the same time?
Objection! Mocking the witness.
Objection overruled. Please answer the question.
Yes, I did both, and I found it to be very rewarding.
I'm finished with this witness.
I wish you redirect, Madam Chairman.
You may be direct.
Thank you. Does my client have longitudinal expressive dysphonia?
Yes,
Does one necessarily have to be ingesting alcohol and drugs to trigger the symptoms?
not necessarily.
Meaning?
That a person can be sober and still exhibit the symptoms of disorder.
Thank you. I'm finished with my report.
Do you wish to re-cross-examine the witness?
I do. Isn't the term longitudinal expressive dysphonia just a fancy sounding label for blabbering?
No, it is not.
How do they differ?
When people blabber, they simply chatter away, not knowing or caring how they sound. However, the people who suffer from LED, they are terrified of becoming silent and thus feel compelled to talk. It is the terror associated with becoming silent that makes LED such a terrible disease.
Isn't it true that you made up the term longitudinal expressive dysphonia?
No, I did not make up the term. It appears in dozens of prestigious medical journals.
And that scientists around the world have published articles directly refuting your findings and theories associated with LED.
Pure politics meant to personally discredit me and take credit for my findings.
And that during your service with the U.S. Liberty Corps, you were also accused of engaging in corporate espionage.
Ridiculous charges. I was too busy treating patients and conducting research to have time to steal information.
And that you were described as being, quote, a pompous charlatan and a buffoon of the lowest order, close quote, by none other than the internationally renowned scientist and philanthropist, Dr. Frederick von Christianstein.
That had to do with an unfortunate misunderstanding that arose after he introduced me to his 17-year-old daughter, Ingrid, who bore a striking resemblance to Rita Hayworth.
I'm finished with this witness.
You are dismissed. Fagleborn exits. Call your next witness.